Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV, and also hopefully to fans of other clubs. I return today on a Monday, not for a Monday review, but a little later than usual in the calendar, my 2021 season preview. So, of course, first I'm going to look at Gills in detail, quick look at pre-season, transfers that have come in, who I think will be top scorer in the campaign that's just about to start this coming Saturday, who will have a breakthrough season, a youngster that I think will make a big impact on the squad, and obviously the big question where I think the Gills will end up finishing in Sky Bet League One, and then the division as a whole, who I think will be champions, who I think will go up as runners-up, who will make the playoffs, and at the other end of the spectrum, sadly, who I think will be relegated back into League Two. But first of all, I want to start with a big thank you, because recently on the channel we have reached the following mark. (1,400 subscribers. For me, I still find it absolutely staggering that amount of people have subscribed to my channel. That amount of people are willing to listen to me rabbit on about Gillingham on a regular basis. So thank you to each and every one of you. Like I've said a million times, and I'll say it again, without you lot, it's just me rabbiting on, talking into a camera about football and about Gillingham and about League One. Without the interaction, the retweets, the shout outs on Twitter, the conversations we have, the people that get involved on YouTube and comment, the people that get involved and start and create discussions on our Facebook page, to all you that like and shout out the Instagram page. It's nothing without all of you, so I really do appreciate the ongoing support. Like I say, I would have never thought when we started this in February 2017 that we'd get anywhere near 1,000 subscribers, let alone 1,400 and pushing on. So thank you to everyone. That's the big thanks out of the way. So let's now crack on with Gillingham. First and foremost, of course, it is a Gills related channel. My first port of call is who I think will finish as top scorer for Gillingham in 2021. And this is it's a tricky one. I think all of this is harder this season because of the fact that there's a transfer window that's going to run well into the season starting. It doesn't expire until October, a good month after the season commences. Everybody's probably a bit behind in terms of preparation and fitness because of this coronavirus pandemic that's set us all back. Everyone seems to be sort of trying to do eight weeks work in 4 or 5 weeks, and it's not ideal, but it's the same for everyone. The salary cap makes a huge difference, so there's plenty of contributing factors that make it more fascinating, more interesting, probably slightly frustrating and annoying if you're a manager or a coach or a scout or a chairman trying to get people in. But I think the salary cap will make it more of a level playing field. I think there's teams that are getting in players that perhaps they wouldn't if there was no salary cap in place, and for me that makes it a more interesting League One. Personally, I don't buy into the fact that it's the strongest League One for years. I think the 3 teams that are coming down from the Championship are all struggling in one way or another. Sad state of affairs at Wigan, we all know too much about that. Same really at Charlton, but maybe on a slightly smaller scale. And we can only hope that both of them teams get sorted out and can start and finish the season, and that their fan bases have a football team to support come the end of this campaign. And Hull, ownership issues, fans are not happy with the manager. So interesting, the 3 coming down. Gills played 2 of them in the first 3 weeks of the season as well, so that could be a slightly better time to play those teams. But yeah, it makes for a really interesting League One campaign. I've gone off on a tangent. Gills, top scorer. I am going to plump for this man coming up on your screen now. That is, of course, Big John Akindi. He arrived in Kent in January for a small fee, we believe. But yeah, unfortunately, the season was cut short only a month or so after he'd arrived, and we definitely didn't see the best of John, I don't think, as a supporter base. And despite him not playing regularly for Lincoln, he featured 9 times for the Gills after arriving in the winter window, and directly involved in 3 goals in that time. His only goal was scored at Blackpool in that 3-2 win in February, and he contributed to 2 more goals. I think there was one at Rochdale and I think he won the penalty at home to Shrewsbury. So in terms of being involved and linking play, I think he's going to be good. I think he'll benefit from a pre-season. He scored twice, I think, in pre-season and provided 3 assists. I think that's correct. Scored against Reading, scored against Watford's under-23s, and definitely set a couple up against Watford as well. Oh, and won the penalty against Reading as well. Yeah, so 2 goals and 3 assists for Big John throughout the summer. For me, it points towards him being our leading marksman come 2021. Whether he get 20 goals, I'm not sure. I don't think he's that type of forward. I'd imagine we'd be looking at around a dozen, which I think would be more than ample. I think he'll bring goals for other players. His size will mean that he occupies defenders and centre halves, creating space for those to run in beyond, whether that's a strike partner or if that's a midfielder from slightly deeper late on. I think he'll have a very good season, and I think he'll cause defenders problems. He was very good against Reading, who put out a decent enough side in a pre-season friendly. I know we don't take too much interest in pre-season in terms of the results, but I thought his performances were decent on the whole. I thought first half in that game he was too static. He didn't move enough and he made it easy. But as soon as he got on the move and started stretching play, he was a real threat, and I thought he got better and better. And that was, for me, his best performance of the pre-season friendlies that we did play. And fingers crossed, with a real summer of fitness behind him, I think he'll be a huge asset going forward. So my plump for top scorer for Gills is John Akindi. Next, we move on to a player who we are thinking may have a breakthrough season. This doesn't have to be a youngster that's burst onto the scene. This just could be someone who we think will have more of an impact than he did previously. Might be that he's come back from injury problems, and there's your first clue I'm going to go for. Steve Evans talked him up really big when he arrived in the summer of 2019. You probably know who I'm talking about now. But my player pick for a breakthrough season is this lad coming up on your screen. Former Manchester United midfielder Matty Willock. One part of a trio of brothers are doing very well in the footballing world at the moment. Obviously, Matty is with Gills, as Chris, I think, was at West Brom last time I saw, and had been on a couple of loan spells, one abroad, and Joe, obviously, doing well in the Premier League with Arsenal. So great to see a footballing family doing well. I think, as I've already mentioned, Matty, he came with good potential for League One, but unfortunately was struck down by injury after injury during 2019-20. He picked his first one up in pre-season and was forever playing catch-up. We started to see a little bit of him and his natural ability towards the end of the season. We were getting some decent cameos. His ability to run with the ball, his ability to get across the park well. He works hard out of possession. He's a good size. He's an athlete. Cover the ground quick enough. He's got 2 good feet and can pick a pass. And fingers crossed he can add goals as well. And I'm not saying he'll start every game. I think we're going to have to be careful with him still. We have been throughout the pre-season campaign. We don't want him breaking down again and missing for months at a time. That would be devastating for him, of course. But I think if we keep Matty Willock fit, I think he's going to have a big say on this team this season. Whether he starts the first few, it might be that he's eased in again, so to speak, from the bench. But all the ability in the world from what I have seen of him, which isn't enough. And I think if he does stay fit, he could be a real asset to Gillingham and a big player in League One. And he's obviously competing with a lot of players in our squad. The likes of Kyle Dempsey's come in, the likes of Jacob Mellis, Alex MacDonald, the people that are still there, like Stuart O'Keefe, Jordan Graham's another one, but a slightly different role. Robbie McKenzie can play there, the lad who's arrived from Hull. Been told he can play centre-back, can play full-back, can play defensive midfield. So maybe we'll see Robbie as the Alfie Jones type from last season. And it's going to be vital that we have players that can play numerous positions, because we're not going to be rolling with a big squad. But my pick for breakthrough season is going to be Matty Willock. And we move on from a player to have a breakthrough season to a youngster that I think will make an impact. Again, it doesn't mean they're going to have to score 15, 20 goals and provide 15, 20 assists. It's someone who I think will be vital to the team. Will put in solid performances, because could have the ability to make himself one of the first names on the team sheet. And I have already mentioned him. There's a couple of picks you can go for in the moment because we've got a lot of youngsters come in. You've got the likes of Zech Medley and Trey Coyle that are coming on loan from Arsenal. They could invariably have very good seasons and be the one to make a big impact. Connor Ogilvie still classed as a youngster. Jack Tucker, but I'm not going for them because we've seen them prove themselves at this level last season. Brandon Hanlon, again, could have an impact if he stays, but I'm not going to plump for him because it's all up in the air still, and that's probably for a different chat. So the player I'm going to go for is one I've already mentioned, and I think he could be very vital because, as I've said, he can play numerous positions, and that is this lad coming up on your screen. My pick for a youngster to have a big impact on the squad during 2020-21 is recent addition Robbie McKenzie. I've been super impressed with him so far in the friendlies that he's played. He's come in and made his debut, I think, at Reading after 2 days training. Didn't look out of place, played a couple of roles. I think he played full-back, I think he played centre-back, he played left-back, I think, for a period in the home draw with Cambridge. Just be curious to see whether he does play holding midfield. I think he could be a player that could play there. Would naturally give us defensive stability in front of a back four because he's defensively minded. And I just think that his versatility could be absolutely key throughout the campaign. So if Ryan Jackson picks up an injury, he can play right back. If something happens to Jack Tucker or Zech Medley or Christian Magoma, he can play centre-back. At a push, he can play left-back if we have an injury to Connor Ogilvie because he's the only out-and-out left-sided defender that we do have at the moment. Like I say, could he be that player that could play as a double pivot if we play a two in front of the back four? Could he be that man that plays as an anchor in front of a back four if we go with a diamond, which we like? I think he could be. So for that reason, my pick for youngster to have a big impact throughout the campaign is Robbie McKenzie. Now for the big question. It's all there. You ain't going to see that unless you pause it and zoom in really quickly. But where do I think the Gills will finish come May? I've had us in a certain area for about 5 or 6 days now, and I've probably rejigged the league table 20 times, moved people up 1 or 2, down 1 or 2, someone in the playoffs, out of the playoffs, someone I thought might get relegated to come out because they've made a good signing. And again, we go back to this thing because of this COVID pandemic, it's really hard to judge because there's a lot of teams that are still doing their transfer business. And it could be like last year where I got caught out and I predicted Oxford to go down. And then they went and signed a load of good players. And I did say in my defence, trying to, save myself here so you don't all switch off after, 10 minutes of the video. I did say at the time that if Oxford went and recruited really well, they could invariably have a very good season because they'd ended the season before quite well to finish in mid-table, and they proved me horrendously wrong, as did Wickham. But I think in fairness, no one saw that one coming. So yeah, it's tricky because there's a lot of transfer business to be done. People could sell players, which then makes them weaker. People could bring players in, which then makes them stronger. We've had talk of, Portsmouth looking at Connor Ogilvie and Brandon Hanlon in the last few days from us. So if Connor goes, then obviously we're a lot weaker defensively because he was 4-time player of the year last season, I think it was. If we lose Brandon Hanlon, I still think, and I know I might be in the minority, we lose a good player at this level because he has all the attributes to be a very good striker, come wide attacker. So, but it's one that we can't really talk about too much, like I say, because Brandon's contract situation's up in the air, and hopefully we'll get some news this week. But in terms of the league table, I'm going to go and talk in depth about the top 6, in depth about the bottom 4, and then I will put a graphic up at the end like I always do of the whole table. There might be fleeting mentions of those in between from 7th down to 20th, so to speak, but obviously going to concentrate on the key areas. But first, my pick for Gillingham, I have decided, I think, we are going to finish in this position. As you can see by the graphic on the screen, I've gone for 8th, which I think is a slight improvement on last season, when we finished 10th on PPG after the early curtailment back in March because of the COVID pandemic. My reasons for 8th, because obviously I'm not just going to chuck it out there and just leave people to guess why I think we're finishing in that position. And I want to be very clear here. I'm pleased, I'm excited. I think there's a lot of potential in the signings that we've made so far. The likes of Jordan Graham, he's proved himself higher up. Carl Dempsey's proved himself higher up. This level, particularly with the likes of Fleetwood, a loan spell at Peterborough. He had a spell in the Championship with Huddersfield, still only 24. Looks like he's in contention to be the captain. Jacob Mellis, highly rated as a kid at Chelsea, has done well in patches in League One, done very well in League Two at the top end for Mansfield. The potential we talk about is the Robbie McKenzies, the Trey Coyles, the Zech Medleys. Ryan Jackson, we know if we get him back to the 2015-16 version, is very good at this level for a right back. Jack Tucker, if he performs to the same level as last season, we know we've got one hell of a centre back. Christian Magoma comes in, talks really well about the fact that he's a proper defender, doesn't like people running past him, loves to tackle, loves to edit, loves to talk. I'd like a bit more experience in that back line, I won't lie. That's probably one of my concerns at the moment. But looking at pre-season, we conceded, I think, 4 goals in 5 games. So in that sense, no drama at all. But obviously they're friendlies, and when the real business starts, we're going to have to be switched on. We can't afford to make mistakes that cost us goals. And I think Steve Evans has alluded to that, especially the goal that we conceded against Leyton Orient on Saturday, which I've not seen, but I believe that Jack Tucker's made a horrendous one. But it's going to happen. As I've said plenty of times, we're League One players for a reason, and they're going to make the odd mistake. And obviously, if you're a centre-half, almost as much as a keeper, if you make one, it ends up being a goal. But my concern is defensively, we could be a bit young, a bit naive. But if we can maintain that solidity that we had last season, then I think we'll be just fine. So then obviously I think with the attacking players in midfield, I think we become more of a threat. The Mellises, the Grahams, the Dempsey, I think will make us more creative, and that's no disrespect to the players that we had last term. I think John Akindi scores more goals this season, so that makes us higher up in the division compared to my prediction of 9th last season. For Dane Oliver's come in, I think he's an Akindi type, scored 8 and assisted 4 last season in League Two. Can he step up? Will he be like a Mika Mandron type? My concern is still goal scoring a little bit. Do we have that magic striker yet that's going to score a Tom Eaves amount of goals? Maybe John Akindi will be that man, but I don't think throughout his career he's been that type of 18, 19, 20 goal a season striker. Like I say, I think he'll be sort of around the 10, 12 mark, and then he'll provide assists. So we're relying on midfield again. So I like the signings. We need more. We know that. I think the midfield signings give us the potential to move upwards. But of course, if we don't retain that defensive solidity and we continue to score at the same rate, then we might drop a couple of places. But at the same time, if we do remain solid defensively and we can add more goals, then we have the potential to gate crash the top 6. So for that reason, I'm going to see us just outside at the moment in 8th position. Let us know your thoughts, Gills fans. Where do you think we're finished? Do you think there's any risk of a relegation battle this season? Do you think we have the potential to gate crash the playoffs? Do you think we can go higher than that? We still have, plenty of time to get signings in, and I'd imagine we're looking at probably 2, 3 or 4 more. And then we'll subsidise that with a couple of youngsters, the Toby Bancrofts and the Henry Woods of this world. But yeah, I'm going for 8th. Right, let's have a look now at the division on a whole. And my first pick is obviously going to be champions. So I will talk about them in detail. And my choice for Sky Bet League One Champions 2021 is this side. Now, for years I've said that they're always a good side, Peterborough United. They always go on brilliant runs of 6, 7, 8, 9 wins on the bounce, and then inconsistency will come in and haunt them, and they'll go 4, 5, 6 without a win. And they've lost Ivan Toney, I've noticed today. It's been confirmed he's gone to Brentford in the Championship, but they've already bought in their replacement in Johnson Clark Harris from Bristol Rovers. So for me, knowing the way they play, knowing the way they're run, they love getting in non-league, lower league talent in and polishing these diamonds and then selling them on. But I think Peterborough can count themselves extremely unlucky last season, probably the most unlucky along with Tranmere Rovers in terms of how the season ended. They were absolutely flying at the time, and they were in the playoffs and dropped out because of points per game. But I think they've started to iron out the problems in terms of inconsistency. So for me, I don't think Ivan Toney's going to be a huge loss. I think he scored 24 last season, but Johnson Clark-Harris got 16, I think, and he missed a few games. And he's invariably playing with better footballers now at Peterborough. They'll be ably supported by the likes of Sariki Dembele, and they've still got the lad Issa who'll score goals. They've got a couple of youngsters coming through that are highly rated. I think it's Ricky J. Jones is one that they've mentioned who will come through and do well, still only 17 or 18. In midfield, they'll create chances. Defensively, they've got good players. So my pick for 2021 champions has got to be Peterborough. Following them up as runners-up for me is this team. Now, I watch the videos of Ben Natman on COD Vlogs, and I talk to him on Twitter, and I follow him on Twitter, and he's in the 442 season preview doing the Fleetwood bit, and it's an interesting read, and it's interesting to see. I think that Ben's got him down a lot lower than I have, because he's still thinking he's got 8th, which I think he's underdoing his side by quite a bit, to be fair, Ben, but obviously you know more about it than I do. But I've plumped for Fleetwood to be runners up this season. I think they've got a really good squad. I think Joey Barton's a good manager at this level. He's had time to bed in now. He's got the squad that he wants. He's brought in good players. The chairman supports him in terms of getting transfers in. I know they've lost a couple of players. Harry Souter obviously was brilliant on loan from Stoke. If they can get him back in, or get in another centre-back of similar quality, I think they'll be absolutely fine. They lost, I think it was Louis Coyle, who they've had on loan at fullback last couple of seasons. He's gone to Hull on a permanent, I think it is. But I'm sure they'll get someone in it who's an able replacement. They've got creative players in the middle of the park. They've got defensive players in the middle of the park that make them hard to play through, the likes of Jordan Rossiter. I think Paul Coots is still there. And they'll score goals. Ched Evans, Paddy Mannon score goals at this level for donkey's years, it seems, but still doing it, still mixing it with the best that this division can offer. So for that reason, I think they're probably only 1 or 2 players away from having a squad that can challenge right at the top end of this division. The only concern will be the hangover from the playoffs, because they got absolutely slapped by Wickham, didn't they, in a weird playoff semi-final. But I think if they can get that out of their system quick enough, they'll be a real threat. So I'm going for Fleetwood to go up with Posh as Sky Bet League One runners-up. And to make up the top 6, I'm going for these teams. Third place, Oxford. 4th place, Sunderland. 5th place, Portsmouth. And 6th place is my dark horse this season, Blackpool. I think Oxford again, similarly to Fleetwood, can they handle the hangover from the playoff final defeat when they lost to Wickham at Wembley? Albeit in really strange circumstances. It was an empty Wembley Stadium, but it'll still Oxford will have wanted to win that game for their fan base, even though they weren't there. But again, I think they've got a solid squad. There's not been too much in terms of departures in the summer from what I've seen. They had to make do and deal with the loss of a couple of good players in January, Tarek Fosu and another one, I can't remember his name. They both went to Brentford, I believe. But it didn't seem to stop them in terms of momentum for the second half of the season, although it was a shorter second half. Matty Taylor back on a permanent's a huge thing for me. He'll score goals at this level. He's done it before plenty of times for the likes of Bristol Rovers. They've still got the lad James Henry, who will create goals, score goals. The big one will be, like I say, as well as the playoff hangover, whether they can hold on to Rob Dickey. But I'm sure they'll get in a decent enough replacement if he does go for a fee. And yeah, I think Oxford will do really well. Carl Robinson has done a decent job there. Probably rebuilt his career a little bit because he took a knock, I think, at MK Dons. But he's a good manager again at this level. He knows his stuff, and I think that Oxford will be right up there fighting for promotion throughout the season. Sunderland, I think Phil Parkinson slightly winning the fans over at Roker Park, at the Stadium of Light. Just went back about 20 years there. And although I know some of the fan base are not, entirely on board with him, I think he's done a decent enough job. He's gone in there and steadied the ship after Jack Ross was sacked, starting to make them play the way he wants them to play. There's rumours that Danny Graham will go in, he'll score goals at that level if they can get him fit and firing. Will Grigg's still a good player at this level, but whether he suits the system, I'm not sure. Chris Maguire's quality. Couple of defensive signings I weren't sure, especially in the goalkeeper area. They've lost John McLaughlin, he's gone to Rangers, but I think Phil Parkinson knows what he's doing at this level. He's a serial promotion winner down in the Football League, and they've got a good squad at this level. Bottom line is, and regardless of whether the fan base don't like the owners or want them out or don't like Phil Parkinson, they've got a very good squad at this level that should be competing, and I think will be competing at the top end of the division. Below that, it's another fan base that I'm not sure is entirely keen on the manager at the moment, and that's Kenny Jackett's Pompey. Spoke to Pompey News over the weekend. They said a lot of the fan base don't want him there. They think he's had his time. The football's become a bit sterile and a bit stagnant. They're not happy he plays John Marquis out of position as a CAM, which is ludicrous. I have to agree with the fan base. We saw him for a short spell at Gills, and he's an out-and-out striker. Score goals if you play him up top. Did it for us, kept us up in 2014-15. Went to Doncaster, scored loads of goals that earned a move to Portsmouth, and it seems that they played him in the wrong position. But an interesting one, because as I've already mentioned, there's talk of Brandon Anland going there, and they want him to play as a central attacking midfielder, which he's not either. So it's a strange one there, but again, they've still got very good footballers. John Marquis, Marcus Harness, I think it is, Elliot Harrison, Ronan Curtis. Sean Raggett's gone back on a permanent after being released by Norwich City. Done really well this season. I know they've lost Christian Burgess, which will be a little bit of experience, but I think they'll be absolutely fine still in midfield if they can keep him fit. Andy Cannon's a good player. Gareth Evans is still there, I think provides leadership. They've got two decent enough keepers in Craig McGilvray and Alex Bass, I think it is. So yeah, again, it's another squad that, regardless of whether the fans are entirely happy with the manager, and bear in mind, I think Portsmouth took more points than anyone from the back end of October, so they can't be doing that bad. I've got them to finish 5th. And my dark horses are the Tangerines of Blackpool. I think they've done some shrewd business in the transfer market, but the biggest thing for me, in terms of their transfer business, I mean the likes of Jerry Yates. I think it's Keshi Anderson who's come in from Swindon. Sorry, just referring to notes here. Yeah, they were both really good players for that team last season, and I think they'll make the step up. I think the manager's recruited well, kept a lot of the players that done well for him last season, and I think that with the benefit of a full summer and a squad that's now his, and more importantly, I think a club that's now, sorted themselves out off the field. Sorry, got my words in a muddle there. The Oystons have gone, and there's a feel-good factor around the town again, I think, and it's great because Blackpool's a proper football club. So they're my outside bet this season, my dark horse. I'm going to have them finishing 6th. Right to the other end of the table, unfortunately, where we have to talk about relegation. Don't shoot me down. I have to put 24 teams in 24 different positions, and I know we're all slightly biased towards our own club, I get that entirely, but my 4 picks are coming up on your screen now. Sorry to the fans of Northampton Town, Wimbledon, Shrewsbury and Rochdale. Might be completely wrong. So, like I said, I had Oxford to go down last season, so one of you might end up in the playoffs. I'm having to just base it on what I've seen last season, what I've seen in terms of transfers this season, this summer. So, bottom of the league, sadly, I've gone for Rochdale. I think Barry Murphy's done a decent enough job there. They've punched above their weight for years now. Keyfield did that for a long time as well. But I just think they've lost 2 massive players. They have a very small budget for this level, and I just think that it's going to catch up with them this season. The 2 players that I'm talking about notably are Ian Henderson, who's dropped down to go and play for Salford in League 2, and Callum Camps, who I didn't mention in the Fleetwood thing, who I think is a really good signing. He's one I mentioned in a potential targets for Gillingham. I think he's a really good player. 24 years old, he's played over 200 games at this level, scores goals, creates chances, works hard, plays as a 10, plays as an attacking 8. They're 2 huge losses for Dale, unfortunately, and I just think that with all the stuff that's been going off in the world, the financial situation of plenty, I think that's going to have a huge effect on Rochdale. I'm sure Rochdale fans or the manager will see these types of previews and use it as motivation, and fair play if they do, but I don't see Rochdale having anywhere near enough to stay up, and I think they will drop back down to the 4th tier, unfortunately. Following them down, some people might be surprised, is Shrewsbury. I just think that there's still a lot of question marks over Sam Ricketts. I'm not sure the fan base is entirely on board with what he's trying to do. Last season, we got a lot of social media talk of him being negative, too defensive, which is strange. They had good players. You look at the people they did have in that team, the likes of Jason Cummings, the likes of Josh Lauren, who's now left. That would be a huge loss. He's gone to Reading in the Championship. I thought he was a very good player last season for them, especially in their cup run. But I remember them coming to us in January and they just rolled over. I know they played Liverpool at the weekend, but you'd think there'd have been a bit more about them. But we was as comfortable as we were all season in winning 2-0 that night. We didn't really have to get out of third gear, and I think there's just a bit of a malaise that's maybe set in. I don't see enough in terms of transfers coming in. I think the centre half, is it Omar Beckles, looks to have left. He's going to be a big loss for them. He was a big part of what they did well last season. Like I say, Josh Lauren's gone. And I just think for them to stay up, it might take Sam Ricketts leaving. So, like I say, sorry to fans of Shrewsbury, but for that basis at the moment, I have to have them in the bottom 4. In 22nd, it's a team that beat us twice last season, and I'm not putting you in there just because of that, Wimbledon fans, but I have to have Wimbledon in there. They've made a couple of signings who I think could make a difference, which is Alex Woodyard and Ollie Palmer. I think from Peter, well, Peter was a free transfer and was Woodyard, and Ollie Palmer's come in from Crawley Town in League Two. If he makes the step up and works well in tandem with Joe Pigott, then perhaps they'll have enough about him in terms of goals to stay above the dreaded drop line. But again, I think it'll be a long, hard slog for Wimbledon. Them two are probably their most notable additions, but aside from that, you're looking at, I think they've signed a couple from non-league. They could work, don't get me wrong, but it'd be a shame if they go down, in the sense that I think they're due to move into Plough Lane in October. Whether there'll be fans there straight away, again, is another question mark, but be another long, hard season, I think, for the Dons. And again, I think like Rochdale, they're punching above their weight at this level, and the fairy tale story since the reincarnation and the phoenix from the flames, so to speak, has been wonderful to watch. But all good things come to an end, and I think this season will be the season that catches up with Wimbledon. I think they might end up going down. And my final place is Northampton Town. We've picked up Verdane Oliver from them, but he's one of numerous from that playoff winning squad that have left. I think they've had the heart ripped out of that team that was at Wembley. I think it's 6, 7, 8 that have gone, or at least featured in the playoff semi-finals as well. It's going to take some clever recruitment from Keith Curl, and I think there's still doubts over him at this level. I think he's a very, very good League Two manager. He's done well with Northampton. He's done all right with Carlisle, I think it was previously. Whether he can step up into this division remains to be seen. I'm sure he'll embrace the challenge. You can ride the crest of a wave of promotion, but obviously replacing so many players that were so important to their success last season is going to be tricky. Like I say, Verdane Oliver was just the tip of the iceberg. They've lost a load more. But again, it comes down to recruitment. It could be that if I did this season preview in October, after I'd seen a few games and after the transfer window shut, the table could look very different. But I can only do it on what I see at the moment. And for that reason, I have Northampton filling the final relegation spot, I'm afraid. Other ones that are probably just quickly run through, in terms of the teams coming down from the Championship, I've got Hull in 7th. I think there's a lot of question marks over Grant McCann, but he's done well at League One level. He's got a lot of good League One players, the likes of Ryan Taffazoli, George Honeyman, Tom Eaves, who we know very well. Bristol Rovers is another one that's interesting for me. I think their recruitment looks really good. I've got them in 10th. I'd probably have them higher if they had a better manager or a more established manager. That's probably harsh saying a better manager. I think there's a lot of question marks over Ben Garner, though. They were simply awful after Graham Coughlin left. I know he had off the field problems where he had to take compassionate leave, Ben, and if he hits the ground running, they could probably gatecrash the top 6. But Johnson, Clark, Harris going is a huge blow. I think so close to the season starting. 16 goals is a big chunk to replace. Whether they can do that, I'm not so sure. They've taken Max Emar off of us. They've got in Jack Balbin, who's done well at this level before, from Sunderland. The lad who come from Coventry, I forgot his name. Is it Westbrook? He's a good player at this level, don't get me wrong, but I think there's just enough question marks over the manager at the moment for me to not put them in the top 6. So that's why I've gone for them in 10th. Ipswich 9th. I think there's still huge issues there. I still don't think Paul Evans knows his best. Paul Lambert doesn't know his best team. There's question marks over James Norwood. There's question marks over Caden Jackson. I think the recruitment, I think they're trying to get some experience in, but doesn't always work. We bought in the likes of Jamie O'Hara and Paul Konchesky a few years ago, and we ended up in a relegation battle. Now, I don't think Ipswich will be anywhere near that, but I've gone for them in 9th. Doncaster, I think, will drop this season. I think Darren Moore will do a good job again, but they lost John Marquis last summer. They've lost Kieran Sadlier this summer. Whether they've got enough about them at the top end of the pitch. James Coppinger keeps churning out results at 39. It's his final season, so hopefully they'll have a decent enough campaign. In terms of the other relegated teams, I've got Charlton in 16th, Wigan in 20th. They would be higher if we had some sort of semblance of stability or new owners coming in, but I can't have either team any higher than that. Wigan, you have to feel for their fans, absolutely heartbreaking. The form from the back end of 2019 through to the end of the season was phenomenal, and then to have their manager go, their team's been ripped apart. Kiefer Moore's gone, they've all gone. It is Jamal Lowe, so many players. It's heartbreaking, but the heartwarming other side of it is the GoFundMe page that has raised over $500,000 in about 3 days, which is staggering. So fair play to everyone who's donated to that. And in terms of the other teams coming up, obviously we've got Northampton going down. I've got Swindon, Crewe and Plymouth all next to each other, weirdly, in 13th, 14th and 15th. I don't see a League Two team this season pushing on and going straight up. We've had it a lot of times, haven't we, in the last few years, where one just carries on that momentum and really challenges at the top end, like Luton. I can't see it this time, unfortunately, but I think Swindon, Crewe and Plymouth will be absolutely fine. The only other one to mention really is Burton, obviously, who lost Nigel Clough after a huge association with the Brewers over 2 spells. He decided to step down. I think it might have been partly due to financial problems because of the COVID, which is excellent gesture from Mr. Clough, and a proper football man, isn't he? Whether Jake Buxton has enough to keep them in the top half, I'm not sure. They've made a couple of shrewd additions. I like Michael Boswick. I think his leadership, he's a proper centre half. Wouldn't have been averse to him coming to Gills. I've said that for years. But it'd be interesting again to see how Jake Buxton gets on. Right, that's enough of me rabbiting on. I will put the graphic up now of my final league table. Yeah, I think I'm done. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Please, please, please get involved. Tell me how wrong I am about your team. Tell me that you should be 10 places higher up, or tell me that you think you should be 10 places lower down. Tell me that you think I've overestimated. But I can't see many fans doing that. I'm pretty sure the responses will be, you've got us too low, you've got us too low, which is absolutely fine. Yeah, so just to reiterate, for Gills, top scorer John Akindi, breakthrough season Matty Willop, youngster to make an impact Robbie McKenzie, Gills to finish 8th, champions Peterborough, runners up Fleetwood, relegated, Northampton, Wimbledon, Shrewsbury and Rochdale. Right, that is enough from me, I promise. The league table is coming up now. As always, keep staying safe. People were back in football grounds at the weekend. It is getting closer. Keep checking out Fan Hub. Thanks again for the 1,400 subscribers. Until we talk again, up the Gills.